Okay, so in today's animation, we're going to be making an 80s sort of tank battle style animation. It's going to loop seamlessly. Let's get into it. Okay, so first thing, Shift A, mesh, and add a plane. Hit S8 and scale it all the way up. So this is what we're going to be working with here. Hit Tab, hit Subdivide on left click, and give it a number of cuts at about 30. I think 30 is sort of the sweet spot for this. Now we're going to add our mountains. So right up here, you're going to want to add proportional editing. So right here on the circle, click connected, and then right here, click random. So now, right here on the right and left, just click and hold shift, and click a couple spots right here on the edge. Now, we're going to scale it up. You can use your scroller wheel to sort of depict how it's going to work. So right about there. I'd say that's about right. And then go in and sort of randomize how high they kind of go. We don't want them all looking the same. Sort of takes away from the design, makes it look very sort of automated. All right, so now we have this. We need to add a mirror modifier so that these connect and looks like a seamless loop. So go to an empty, add a plane axis, hold down Control, and it'll snap right to the edge of our plane here. So right there, messed it up. All right, click on your plane and add a mirror modifier. Now here, mirror object, click your empty, uncheck X and click Y. So now they connect perfectly right here. And so when we add our array modifier, it'll be seamless. Next thing we need to do is add our camera. We're going to animate this real quick. So click your camera, hold down Shift, and bring it all the way to the edge of our plane here. We want it to snap to grid. And if you messed it up, if you're following along, it's a -8. That's the spot. Like I'll put it on a random one. Just click -8, and it snaps right here to the edge. So go to your rotate settings, give it 90, 0, and 0. And I'm just bring it up just slightly. So if you're following along, you can do that exactly, and you'll get a perfect loop here. So now we're going to animate it really quick. So by default, your frame rate should be at 24 frames a second. And then right down here on end, I'm going to give it 120. That'll make a 5-second animation. Go to your user preferences. On animation, make sure your default interpolation is on linear. Now click on your camera, make sure it's selected. Right here on Y, click the keyframe. Click all the way to the edge of your animation, right here on this button, and then click the right arrow once so that you skip a frame. Now hold down Control and bring it all the way to the edge. We're going to want to go to 24 on the Y, so it's right there on the edge of our plane. And then click keyframe. Now it should be moving right down the mountains. And then let's add our array modifier really quickly, then we can see if it loops seamlessly. So go to the array, put 0 there, and 1 right here, so you can see sort of there's no seam here on the edge. I'm going to give it 10 real quick to see if this loops perfectly. I'll just watch it real quick. Yes, perfect loop. All right. Now let's click on our camera real quick. I'm going to make my lens wider, so camera and then focal length, we'll make it right about there. And then I want to make our camera look up a little bit, just like that. Okay, now let's get into designing this. So first thing we're going to add the classic wireframe and the modifiers. Wireframe just like that. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Click replace original. And let's add our materials. So let's add a metallic material real quick. I'm going to make it dark and then make it metallic. And then we'll add an emission shader. So click new, emission, and I'm going to make it blue. Well, strength of 50, and then we'll make it blue. All right, now let's go back to the wireframe modifier. Click material offset of 2, hit Z, and check out the render. So there it is. Let's go to our world settings real quick and make it black. I don't know why it's gray by default, but we're going to add a HDRI in just a minute, so we don't really have to worry about that. Okay, so this design, let's add an HDRI. So let's go to HDRI Haven. I'm going to link it in the description. And let's pick a sky. So on HDRI Haven, it should have a little thing right here that says skies. That's what we want. We need some clear skies. So I'm going to pick I'm going to pick this Kiara Dawn, and I'm going to click 4K to download it. Okay, so now save your HDRI to wherever you want. Click on the world settings, right here where it says color. Click that. If it's not there, first you want to click use nodes, then click right here by the color, and click environment texture. Okay, so it's going to overpower our scene quite a bit. So first we're going to give it 0.1 on the strength. Actually, let's bring it up right about there. And then let's go to our shading preset right up here. If not, just bring the shader editor with a new window. So click shading. I'm going to hit 0 so we can see what's going on. And right up here in the shader editor, go to world. So we're going to add a mapping node and a texture coordinate node. Now let's just put the generated on the vector and the vector to the vector. So if we scale the Z around, you can kind of see what's going on. So sort of scale it around a little bit on the Y. On the X, bring it down so we can see the sky. I switched the HDRI real quick. I didn't like that one, so we're going to go with this one. Pick whatever one you want, but generally you kind of want a clear sky for this because we're going to change the color. So add those two nodes, and right here, right behind the background node, we're going to hit Shift A right here on color, click hue saturation, and place it right there. If you want to see it better, turn off bloom, and we're going to change the color of our HDRI sky. So right here on hue, just click it till it goes, I'm going to make it purple, but you can make it whatever color you want. So I'm going to make it this purple because that's sort of a classic look for these 80s sort of designs. All right, let's go back to layout. Click your mountains, hit tab, and I'm just going to select a couple of random vertices here, and we're going to make our ground just slightly bumpy. Make sure you still have proportional editing on, and we'll just scale it up like that. And now we have kind of a bumpy ground, and that's what we're looking for. All right, next thing we're going to do, go to your shader, click on this material right here, go back to the shading preset, and click object. And so we're going to add a bump node to this ground to make it a little bit more interesting. So hit Shift A, type in bump, plug it into the normal, and let's get a noise texture. And let's plug that noise into the height. All right, here on the node, bring up the detail, bring up the scale. I'm going to make this a little bit less rough so we can have some nice reflections. And that's what we have. And we're going to bring down the strength just a little bit as well. All right, the last thing we want to add is sort of a little sun. So bring in a UV sphere, shade smooth, and just bring it pretty far back here. We're going to want to bring it to the end of our animation. And let's scale it up quite a bit. It's right about there. And I'm going to subdivide it a couple times because you can kind of see it's low poly. All right, let's add an orange emission shader. So give it emission, make it kind of orange, and we don't want to make it too bright. So I think right about there works. And make sure you parent it to the camera. So select your sphere, then select the camera, Control P, and click Object, so that it looks like it's so far in the horizon you can't see it moving, but it's just following the camera. It's a little bit of an optical illusion right there. So now we have our render. I'm gonna click render to see how it looks real quick. The preview is always not quite as good as the render. All right, so that's what our render looks like, and that about sums it up. We have some nice color going on, nice VJ loop that you can add to whatever you want. And there you go. I hope you learned something. I hope you use it. If you make it, send it to me on Instagram. I'll add you to the highlight, and you can see other people's work and my work as well. Thanks for watching.